Well, I couldn't talk louder than that. Sorry. Good morning. Welcome to this liberal religious congregation, Community Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Donne Rolfes, one of your worship associates, and my pronouns are she, her. Welcome to all who are joining us for worship here in the sanctuary or online. Whoever you are, whoever you love, wherever you are on your journey, you are welcome here. This morning's service is a joint production with Community's Welcoming Congregations Committee as part of our Pride Month celebration. This committee's purpose is to make sure that the church is not just accepting, but openly embraces people who are LGBTQIA. This is a spiritual value for Unitarian Universalists, key to our theology and our values, which place love at the center of everything. We want to thank Kiki Boyett, our speakers Amanda Greene and Trey Boyett, Cherry Krim, who brought the church a gift that Kiki will present later in the service, and all the members of our welcoming committee and pride team. They give their time and energy all year to projects like arranging a visit from Nico Lang, I don't know if you guys remember that, a couple weeks ago, or hosting booths at pride events or marching in parades. After the service, our church chats program will have a slightly different format. The welcoming congregation team will host an Ask Me Anything session where you can chat about the service today or ask that burning question you always felt too awkward to ask. Welcoming committee, we appreciate the time and energy you put into making sure that this church is truly welcoming and loving community. Thank you. Welcome, let's worship together. These are words by Reverend Dr. Kimi Floyd Reisch. We live in a culture that often celebrates independence and self-sufficiency. We are taught to admire those who make it on their own and pull themselves up. Yet our lives tell a different story. Every one of us is shaped by relationships, communities, ecosystems, histories, and countless acts of care. None of us arrives here alone. For LGBTQ plus people, this truth is especially visible. Across generations, chosen families, mutual aid networks, congregations, advocacy organizations, neighbors, friends, and loved ones have helped create pathways toward safety, joy, and flourishing. The story of LGBTQ plus liberation and survival is also a story of interdependence. And we reflect on a wisdom carried across generations through the African philosophy of Ubuntu. I am because we are. We will begin by lighting our chalice, a symbol of Unitarian Universalism and the light of hope. Each Sunday when we gather, we light the symbol of life. Today the chalice will be lit by Tricia Culberth. Words are by Reverend Kimi Floyd Reisch.
We belong to one another in the light and in the sorrow. We belong to this earth and to the air around us, to the rivers and forests which nourish us, to the stars above us which guide our path as we circle the sun, and we belong to the generations yet to come. We belong to the stories that shaped us, and every human who has ever lived belongs to the future we are shaping together. We light this chalice remembering that none of us stands alone, that freedom is never solitary. Our lives are woven together in one sacred web of relationships. We belong to love. We belong to each other. We belong to this living world. I am because we are. We are because we belong.
A covenant is a promise we make with one another about the way we will walk together as a community, a congregation. Please join me in reminding ourselves of this promise. Together, love the spirit of this church and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to help one another.
Good morning. I'm Trey Boyett. I've been a member of this church for nearly a year now. I first came for the Pride service where my mom, Kiki Boyett, spoke last year. I'm a transgender man. I just got married to my husband, and all my friends are queer in some way. So I like to think I have some experience in the LGBT community. I mention all this so I may be given some grace when I say I do not like Pride. To me, being queer is not a core part of my identity. It's not one of the things I mention in an introduction. It really only comes up when relevant. I'm not ashamed of being queer. I don't wish to be straight, but I'm not proud of it. I think of it like having brown hair. It just is, and it doesn't change who I am. Sometimes at Pride events, it feels like I get reduced to just being gay, just being trans. That becomes the most important part of my identity. And finding people just like me with the same gender or sexuality as me means family and community, but I don't often feel that way. I usually don't have more in common with other gay men than with people my age or people with my hobbies. It seems that the same type of queer gets lumped together when each person is such an individual. Along with that, because I'm queer, I'm expected to love Pride and celebrate it every year, but it just is not my scene. Personally, I don't enjoy large events or crowded spaces. I'm also not a huge fan of rainbow everything, glitter, and being fabulous. I just don't fit in there. I'm a bit more plain, I enjoy things more chill, and I'm happy with that. But at Pride, there doesn't always seem to be space for people like me. There feels like a pressure to perform the kind of out there, you can be anything queerness that just does not come naturally. It's very important to have space for that expression, but I think that being concentrated at Pride is a side effect of homophobia. It almost reinforces the idea that queerness has a look. Have you ever heard someone say, "Oh, you don't look trans," as like a compliment? It doesn't feel good. It's like them saying, "Oh, I didn't know you were different." It builds a wall between you and them, that they are different. Pride being focused on extravagance feels like a safe space to be different, but it's also a reminder that we need that space because it isn't anywhere else. Pride feels so much like a celebration. Everything is wonderful. We've come so far. We've won. Let's party. And that may have worked in 2015, but in this climate, we cannot afford to be so relaxed. So far in 2026, 797 anti-trans bills have been proposed. Last year, 126 bills were passed. There is still so much fight left. Pride started as a riot, and we have become so soft. This is not to say we can't be happy at all. There is so much joy in being queer, but there is also rage and fear, and we have to honor that. I believe that Pride needs to be a rally. It needs an emphasis on the turbulent past and the future that we want. Community education on queer history to build an intergenerational community that currently does not exist in the queer community. Registering everyone to vote, sharing information on all political candidates, and making sure they do actually get to the polls. Getting people to protest at city council and at school board meetings. Giving people direct resources to educate people that are on the fence, people in their lives. And helping people fight the bigotry in their own heart. We must have all of these, alongside drag, vendors, rainbows, and glitter. But as it stands, it feels like a purposeful distraction from working towards true liberation. Pride currently feels so straight. It almost feels like a party to show support for queers without needing to do much else. It reduces people to only their queer identity. It focuses on extravagance while keeping it separate from society. The pride we have now is a consolation prize without substance. And for most people, it can be ignored for the rest of the year. Every day, queer and trans rights are stripped away and people are killed and abused. We need to fight, and that will never happen with the palatable celebrations we're hosting now. I know many people want to help and don't know where to start. Pride should tell them exactly where they can. There's so much good that can be done if we just get together and do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Trey. So the reading today is For Remembering We Were Never Strangers by Reverend Dr. Kimi Reisch. Put the flags down for a moment. The rainbow one, the pink, blue, and white one, the American one, the ones we wave to celebrate, the ones we wave to survive, the ones we wave because we are still trying to convince ourselves and one another that we belong. Set them down gently. Take off the t-shirts and the pins. And when you have released them, put down the stories that created them as well. Put down the stories that taught you to fear one another because those stories said there was only one way to be a human. That binary between belonging and rejection drew borders through nations, through families, through bodies, and then through hearts. The stories that taught us that difference is danger and belonging must be earned. Now be still for a moment. Listen. Beneath the noise of campaign ads and court decisions, beneath the history lessons that leave whole peoples unnamed, beneath the arguments about who counts as human and who deserves dignity, there is another sound. It's older. It is a rustle of prairie grass between the feet of our ancestors. It is a river speaking Mohawk, Lenape, Niitsitapi, Gaelic, Tagalog, Spanish, English, and 1,000 other languages all at once. It is the murmur of generations introducing themselves across time. Listen carefully. The earth has never asked any of us to prove we belong here. The maple does not demand a pedigree. The river does not require citizenship. The moon does not ask for documentation. The aspen grove does not deny the soft moss, the soil, water, and air it needs to grow. Only empires do that. Only fear does that. The earth remembers something older than fear. Before there were nations, there were relations. Before there were borders, there were responsibilities. Before there were categories, there were people. People gathered around fires, people sharing food, people grieving their dead, people singing children to sleep, people falling in love, people carrying broken hearts, people living every day with joy. The world would later invent names for us: gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, non-binary, two-spirit, queer. But long before there were words, there were lives and communities, and we were part of them. And long before there were pride festivals, our people were finding one another beside fires, around kitchen tables, and in drag ballrooms, on porches, in fields, in churches and hidden rooms, in whispered conversations, and sometimes in the open sunlight. There were people who recognized one another despite every effort to make them disappear. This is our lineage. the ancestors who crossed oceans unwillingly, the ancestors who survived removal, the ancestors who learned new languages while trying not to lose the old ones, the ancestors who pretended their love was friendship, the ancestors who rejected their role and made their own way, the ancestors who hid pieces of themselves so their children might live, the ancestors who refused, the ancestors who endured. Their stories live beneath our skin. And so do the pieces of ourselves we were taught to abandon. Maybe you were the child who was told you were too much, too brown, too queer, too feminine, too masculine, too indigenous, too black, too loud, too strange, too human. But return to the truth. There's a place at the fire for all of you, and you do not have to break off pieces to belong. There always was. Let the truth hold what this nation could not. Let the trees carry what some churches could not. Let the rivers remember what the history books forgot. Then look around. You will find others arriving too, some still searching for words for who they are becoming. Pull another chair into the circle. Leave a place for the one who still believes they are alone, the one who has forgotten their own name, the one who has been told there's no reason for them in this country, this faith, or this world. Because none of us arrived here alone. Belonging is remembering of something ancient, that before fear learned our names, before shame learned our names, before nations and churches and courts learned our names, we belonged to one another. We were never strangers, not to the earth, not to our ancestors, not to each other, and never to ourselves.
So I'm Amanda Greene. I'm also on the Welcoming Committee, and I'm a queer ally with a pan kid. I identify myself mostly as cis-hetero, leaning but not quite bi in ways I find difficult to label, even to myself. I only recently learned the difference between sexual and emotional attraction at the resource fair, and I need to explore this more. The first openly gay person I knew was during my first attempt at college. Conversations with him about his sexuality and faith greatly impacted my perspective. He said that his relationship with God was strained until he had accepted himself, believing that he was perfectly made just as he was, and that denying that was denying the divinity inside him. Our society needs to stop denying the divinity of its members. Years later, when I returned to college, another friend taught me the term pansexual, when she began dating a person transitioning. We went to drag performances and hung out with other queer people. We talked politics, gender theory, feminism, and read text with a queer lens. We were English majors. In 2015, we saw gay marriage legalized and basked in bright visions of the future. And then we cried together over the phone in the middle of the night when Hillary didn't win. Our fears weren't unfounded. It's been worse than we imagined. The first time I felt like an active ally was in 2021, my first year teaching. An awesome coworker, hello Stephanie, invited me to co-sponsor our high school's first chapter of GSA, formerly the Gay Straight Alliance, now the Genders and Sexualities Association. I was excited to sponsor an after-school or club that I believed in. However, we weren't sponsors, we were monitors, supervising the students while they were on school property. According to the ACLU's explanation of the Equal Access Act, and stressed by the principal, the organization could only exist if it was completely student-led, or someone higher up would shut us down. Sometimes his advice felt supportive, more often it did not. So we jumped through the hoops, and we finally got our GSA. Stephanie fostered fabulous student-led conversations about gender and sexuality. Students learned a lot from each other. I learned a lot from them. For 2 years, the students thought about ways to impact the community, only to be thwarted by administrative hurdles. Our students planted a tree in honor of the student who had inspired starting our chapter. Unfortunately, it died over the summer and was removed by ground maintenance. Next, our students petitioned to create a food sharing table, a place where foodstuffs from one student's tray could be left for another student who was still hungry or didn't have lunch money. It was denied, supposedly based on a technical requirement, but we have one now, oddly enough. It felt as if nothing we tried to do was supported. However, we could still meet. I hoped that would be enough for the students who needed it. Even students who did not want to attend might feel better about our school's culture knowing we existed. In addition to these failed efforts to foster community engagement, our town's Pride Festival was repeatedly protested against by the president of the school board, and our school lost Stephanie as a teacher through unwelcome life events. We got a new principal whose support felt shallow, and then Trump was reelected. I felt defeated by our school, our town, and our country's culture. So in the last year of monitoring GSA, when the kids spoke about changes they wanted to make, I did not encourage them. I hedged, I delayed, I reminded them what a precarious political situation we were living through. I thought I was protecting them. I thought if we were quiet enough, not making too much noise or too many waves, we'd be ignored. Even if we weren't creating innovative programs that benefited our community, having a time and a place to hang out on campus was worth salvaging. That changed last summer. The state legislature passed Senate Bill 12. SB 12 is an act relating to parental rights in public education, to certain public school requirements, and prohibitions regarding instruction, diversity, equity, and inclusion duties, and social transitioning, and to student clubs at public schools. According to the ACLU, legislatures called out GSAs by name and falsely claimed that GSAs are inappropriate for young people in Texas. Specifically, the bill said a school or district or open enrollment charter may not authorize or sponsor a student club based on sexual orientation or gender identity. I still sometimes feel the intense fear I felt at the beginning of this administration when I worried about my family making posts openly critical of the president, when I was even afraid to like posts on social media. I felt all I could do was survive the day and try not to be noticed. I feared anything was possible, and these possibilities terrified me. Time passed, and I grew more angry than afraid. I was encouraged by the protests I attended and the connections I made with other angry people. Their defiance emboldened me. Before the start of last school year, the principal told me in a private meeting that I would not have a GSA anymore. I voiced my determination to continue to serve that demographic however I could, even if that was a coloring book club. Some of the students knew about SB 12, some didn't. When they asked me if our GSA was still active, I told them no, but they were still welcome to come in after school and they could make a new club. They didn't. I missed them all year. Fortunately, a few kids still came by to say hi and let me know what new sapphic novel they were reading. I've struggled with the shame that comes from feeling like I failed to fight for people I love or left them feeling unsupported. I've struggled with fear and anxiety-induced paralysis. Friday, when I learned that the government is injecting the Bible into the 2030 curriculum, for a bit, I felt frozen again. I know I'm not alone in feeling this way, and now it's difficult to feel patriotic approaching our nation's 250th anniversary. I was raised on the promises and founding ideals that all people are created equal and everyone has the right to believe what is authentic to them and to pursue what makes them happy. I was raised in a Christian faith, wearing bracelets that asked me, what would Jesus do? And I studied scriptures that led me to believe that answer was love and treating people with radical acceptance. I was raised with a family that nurtured curiosity, open to perspectives different from my own. Despite the dichotomy of my ideals and a reality that mocks them, I believe in humanity. I cling to the hope that humans will be humane. I wish I could share solutions. This church has helped encourage me to speak up and stand up for all persecuted people. All I can say is, let's keep going. But when everything feels like too much, reach out for connection, find some joy, and as the kids say, go touch grass.
And now we move into the close of our time together. Interdependence reminds us that our lives are woven together in ways both visible and unseen. The flourishing of one community contributes to the flourishing of all communities. The gifts of LGBTQ+ people strengthen our congregations, our neighborhoods, our families, and our faith. As we celebrate Pride, we may recommit ourselves to the sacred work of building communities where care is shared, dignity is protected, and every person has the opportunity to thrive. In a world that often tells us to stand alone, we may remember a deeper truth. We need one another.